Evelyn Blackwood stood in the cavernous, echoing silence of Blackwood Manor, the scent of dust, dried potpourri, and 90 years of uninterrupted history hung heavy in the air, a physical manifestation of the inertia that had defined her family for generations. She was 29, a modern woman with a career in data analysis, and she felt like an anthropologist wading through an extinct civilization. Her grandmother, the formidable and emotionally frigid matriarch, Helena Blackwood, had finally passed, leaving Evelyn the unenviable task of inventorying and liquidating the estate. The will, a dry legal document, made it clear. Everything was to be sold. The proceeds divided evenly between Evelyn and her cousin, Marcus. Marcus, a man whose sole life achievement was successfully litigating against his ex-wife, was already breathing down her neck, demanding an appraisal of the liquid assets. His calls, laced with thinly veiled hate and greed, were the main source of drama in Evelyn's otherwise monotonous week. He cared only for the monetary worth of the oil paintings and antique silver. Evelyn, by contrast, wished only to be done with the suffocating place. She held a cold indifference for the family's past, viewing it as a long, tedious line of joyless privilege. The drawing room was her starting point, a suffocating space filled with dark mahogany and portraits whose eyes seemed to follow her with disapproval. She was directed by an old inventory note to check the hidden compartment of a massive double-fronted Biedermeier cabinet. It was a tedious process. After wrestling with a sticky latch, a shallow drawer popped open. It contained nothing of obvious value, no jewels, no deeds, no gold. Instead, nestled in the faded green velvet lining, lay a plain, unadorned wooden box. It was surprisingly small, perhaps 8 inches long and 5 inches wide, made of dark, heavy oak. It was locked, and the clasp was simple but sturdy. There was no keyhole visible on the front, only a tiny, almost invisible indentation on the side. It was so ordinary, so unflashy that Evelyn almost missed it, dismissing it as a relic for storing old stationery. It was the definition of forgotten. "Find anything to retire on, cousin?" Marcus stood in the doorway, his silhouette framed by the weak autumn light. His voice was a grating rasp. He was older, perpetually slicked back, and carried an aura of entitled disdain. His presence immediately ratcheted up the tension. Evelyn closed the drawer, shielding the box. "Just some old paperwork. Nothing that warrants your immediate attention." "Oh, I think everything here warrants my immediate attention, Evelyn. Unlike you, I understand what this name means. This house, these objects, they are capital. I won't have you pocketing little trinkets before the auctioneer arrives." The simmering hate between them was palpable, built not on deep personal history but on years of mutual inherited dislike. Now sharpened by shared avarice, "It's empty, Marcus. Go back to counting the silverware." Evelyn forced a casual shrug, but her heart hammered. Why was she protecting this insignificant box? It had no intrinsic worth she could see. Marcus advanced, his polished shoes scuffing the Persian rug. "Let me see it." "See what?" "The dust? The cabinet?" "I'll be thorough, then," he sneered, moving past her to the mantelpiece, scrutinizing a porcelain vase. His greed was a thick, humid fog, entirely focused on profit. Evelyn waited until he was distracted, then slipped the small wooden box into the deep pocket of her coat, her first act of rebellion in this house of ghosts. Later that night, in the relative sanctuary of the estate's dilapidated library, Evelyn finally examined the box under the glow of a single brass lamp. She ran her fingers over the smooth, cold oak. The lock mechanism was unlike anything she had ever seen. It wasn't meant to keep thieves out. It was meant to hide, to ensure privacy. She spent an hour searching the cabinet again, then the desk beneath it, then the entire drawing room, looking for a matching key. Nothing. Exhausted, she retreated to the main hall. Her grandmother, Helena, had been obsessed with collecting small, ornate musical instruments. One particular piece, a Victorian music box shaped like a tiny grand piano, sat on the landing, ignored by the appraisers due to its worn condition and broken mechanism. Evelyn remembered always being forbidden to touch it as a child. She picked it up. It felt heavier than it looked. Instinctively, she twisted the remnants of the winding key. It groaned. and a tiny, almost inaudible click sounded from the piano's broken lid. Inside, where the mechanism should have been, was not brass wire and gear teeth, but a small, shallow, felt-lined cavity. And in the cavity, resting like a silver tear, was the key. It was impossibly delicate, forged from blackened silver, with a head shaped like a tiny stylized bird in flight. It was an object of art, completely out of place with the plainness of the oak box. With trembling hands, Evelyn fitted the key into the small indentation on the side of the box. It turned silently, smoothly. The lid lifted with a faint sigh of escaping old air. The box was not empty. Inside, resting on a bed of dry, crumbling silk, were two objects. The first was a small, perfectly preserved photograph. It was black and white, slightly sepia-toned, and showed a couple. The woman was breathtakingly beautiful, with wide, defiant eyes and hair pulled back in a severe but fashionable 1920s style. Her gaze was directed off camera, full of a yearning that seemed to leap across the decades. The man beside her was ruggedly handsome, wearing the simple, rough uniform of a soldier, but his eyes were fixed entirely on the woman, a look of consuming, reverent love etched onto his face. The back of the photo was blank, save for two initials scrawled in faint pencil, E and L. The second object was a leather-bound journal. Its cover was smooth from handling, its pages thin and yellowed. The first page contained a sweeping, elegant script, dated October 14th, 1918. Evelyn inhaled sharply, suddenly aware that she was holding the truth of Blackwood Manor, not its balance sheet. This wasn't about inheritance. It was about intrusion into a 100-year-old love affair. She began to read, October 14th, 1918. The war is over, but my personal war has just begun. Father insists my future is decided. Julian Ashworth, wealthy, titled, and utterly cold. He is the anchor that will save this sinking ship of a house, Father says. He is the money that will keep the Blackwood name from ruin. But every time Julian touches my hand, I feel a physical revolt. His wealth is dry, like the rustle of dead leaves. I cannot do it. November 3rd, 1918, Liam. He saw me weeping by the stables today. He didn't ask why. He simply placed a bridle in my hand and told me to take Whisper out, to run until the tears were dried by the wind. Liam, the stable hand, the boy with dirt under his nails and the sun in his eyes. When he smiles, the granite walls of this dreary house seem to soften. I have known him since childhood, yet only now, when my fate is sealed to another, does I feel the full, crushing weight of my love for him. It is a terrifying, beautiful thing, this realization. It is the only true thing I possess. December 24th, 1918. The lie is suffocating. Christmas Eve dinner with Julian was endless, a performance of polite interest in stocks and bonds. Later I slipped out. The snow was falling, turning the manor grounds into a silent, enchanted world. Liam was waiting by the south wall as we agreed. He had nothing to give me but his hands and his promise. We stood there, frozen and weeping, our tears turning to ice on our cheeks because we knew what we must do. I am to be Julian's wife in name, but in my soul, I am only Liam's. He held me so tightly I thought my ribs would crack. And I wanted nothing more than to break into a million pieces in his arms, to dissolve the facade of Helena Blackwood, January 10th, 1919. We did it. In the gray, frigid dawn, before anyone in this house was stirring, we found a small, discreet church miles away. A parish priest who asked no questions and accepted a small, worn gold coin married us. Liam used a piece of copper wire twisted into a circle as a ring. We are married. Husband and wife. The sheer, glorious drama of it, a Blackwood bride married to a man of nothing, a man with only love to offer. When he kissed me, it was not the chaste peck Julian offered, but a consuming fire that claimed every part of me. That kiss, I know, is the only truth I will ever possess. We exchanged vows, knowing that within the month I would exchange vows again with Julian. The guilt is immense, but the joy is absolute. February 5th, 1919. The society wedding. A blur of white lace, cold champagne, and endless congratulations. I saw Liam standing far off in the woods watching from the shadows of the old oak. He looked like a statue of heartbreak. I smiled, a flawless, brittle smile for the cameras, and my hand rested on my stomach. The secret is already growing. The child is Liam's. It must be raised as Julian's. The decision was made in the frantic days before the wedding, a reckless, desperate gamble on future happiness. Julian is rarely attentive. He will never know. The heir of Blackwood Manor will be the son of a stable hand, a quiet monument to forbidden love. It is a dangerous, terrible, necessary secret. July 1st, 1920. Arthur is here. He is beautiful. His eyes are the exact color of Liam's, a deep summer dusk gray. When I hold him, I feel the crushing weight of the lie, but also the intoxicating purity of my love. Julian is indifferent. He sees the boy as property, as a continuance of his line, but not as a soul. This coldness is my saving grace. It allows me to cherish Arthur as my own, as Liam's. But my heart aches for the man who should be holding him, who should be teaching him the names of the stars and the proper way to handle a horse. November 12th, 1925. 5 years of this gilded cage. 5 years of Julian's icy presence, of endless, meaningless dinner parties, and the slow, corrosive realization that Liam is not coming back. We agreed he must make a name for himself, earn enough to buy a small farm, to show the world he was worthy of me and Arthur. He went west. His letters have become infrequent, then months apart, then silence. My letters to him, filled with desperate love and drawings of Arthur, return, marked address unknown. The truth is a barbed wire around my throat. I am trapped by my own deceit. The only thing that sustains me is the sight of Arthur, Liam's living legacy. I must protect him. I must be the cold, proper Blackwood wife Julian requires so that Arthur can inherit this land, this name, this security that Liam could never offer. February 14th, 1930. The hate for Julian is now a constant, low-frequency hum beneath the surface of my life. He is not physically cruel, but his emotional neglect is a calculated, chilling weapon. He never compliments me, only critiques. He sees no joy in the world, only transactions. He has started calling Arthur soft, questioning his focus and lack of manly ambition. Every word is a knife. I want to scream the truth, to shatter this awful drama and expose him for the miserable fraud he is, but Arthur's future depends on my silence. I reread Liam's last letter, stained now with old tears. It was written hastily from a logging camp in Oregon. He was so full of hope, talking about saving for a small house with a garden for me. Just a few more years, my Alara, then I will buy back your freedom with every cent earned by my own 2 hands. That was 5 years ago. I am slowly losing hope. The tragedy of the wait is suffocating me. April 3rd, 1932. The Great Depression. The phrase is all anyone speaks. Julian is distracted, losing money but hiding it behind a rigid facade. He is more volatile than ever. I hear him shouting at the servants, who are terrified and overworked. I see the flicker of genuine fear in his eyes, not of poverty, but of losing his status. If he ever discovered the truth about Arthur, about the years of his own ignorance, the way I tricked him into raising another man's blood, he would destroy us both. He would ruin Arthur's future out of spite. I have made a decision. I have sealed the journal and the photograph into this plain oak box. I will hide it deep within the manor, in a compartment only I know about. If Blackwood Manor falls, if the truth must be known, it will be found by someone who needs to know the true story, not the financial one. July 22nd, 1940. It is done. The telegram arrived this morning, brief and brutal. A man named Liam O'Connell died in a mining accident in Nevada. No next of kin, save for a small faded photograph found in his pocket. A photograph of a woman and a child. The man who sent the telegram, a kind old man from the mine, wrote a short note saying Liam had been saving every penny, always speaking of his Alara and the boy. The grief is a physical, living thing. I crawled into the library and screamed into the pillows until my throat bled. 48 hours ago, my life was a lie of frozen composure. Now it is a devastating truth of eternal loss. The man I love has been dead for weeks, fighting for a return that would never happen. I have locked away my heart. I will never love another. I will be the cold, perfect matriarch this family expects. I will protect Arthur, who is now 10, with my life. He will never know the truth. He must be spared this sorrow, this tears-soaked sacrifice. This box is the only witness to my real life. Now I must become Helena. Evelyn finished the last entry. The date, July 22, 1940, was the exact day her grandmother, Helena Blackwood, was born. No, not Helena. Elara, her grandmother, the woman she had only known as cold, judgmental, and utterly proper, was a woman who had pulled off a generations-long deception rooted in desperate love and tragic loss. Evelyn was shaking, her own tears blurring the fragile ink. The image of Liam, the stable hand, looking at Elara with consuming devotion, was superimposed over the brittle image of her grandmother on the mantelpiece, the rigid posture, the thin, unsmiling lips. That woman wasn't born cold. She was made cold by an insurmountable heartbreak. The manor wasn't a prison built by joyless people. It was a mausoleum built by a heartbroken woman determined to honor a promise to a dead man. The secret was not about money, but blood. The Blackwood lineage, the very thing Marcus clung to with such arrogant pride, was based on the blood of a worker, a dreamer, a man of profound love. Evelyn's grandfather, Arthur, whom she remembered as a quiet, thoughtful man, was Liam's son. The whole history of Blackwood Manor was a vast, elaborate drama orchestrated by one courageous woman, a triumphant, aggressive voice sliced through her grief. Aha! Hiding in the dark, are we? I knew you'd find something. Marcus stood over her, breathing heavily. He had clearly been looking for her. He saw the box, the journal, and Evelyn's tear-streaked face. What is it? Gold, bonds? Did the old witch hide the good stuff from the tax man? His eyes, narrow and avaricious, fixed on the leather journal. The paper is old, but it could be stock certificates. Give it to me. Evelyn instinctively pulled the box to her chest, shielding it. It's nothing, Marcus. Just a journal. My grandmother's thoughts. Her thoughts? He let out a harsh, barking laugh, full of deep-seated hate for anything intangible. Old Helena Blackwood never had a thought worth more than a sixpence. Get out of the way, Evelyn. I'm taking this to a paper appraiser. He lunged. The encounter, which began as a quiet discovery, instantly devolved into ugly physical drama. Marcus, stronger and taller, gripped the edge of the box. Evelyn clung to the sides, her knuckles white. Stop it! You won't touch this! She cried, a fierce protective instinct, born from reading Elara's love story, suddenly overriding her usual apathy. What are you, sentimental? Is this all the great Blackwood inheritance is worth? Sentimental rubbish. He yanked, and the weak clasp of the ancient journal snapped. Several pages tore loose, fluttering to the floor. Evelyn screamed, a sound ripped from the core of her discovered sorrow, and she pushed him away with surprising force. Marcus stumbled back against a bookshelf, scattering dusty volumes. You self-important vulture! Evelyn spat, her voice shaking with righteous fury, her face streaming with fresh tears. You care about capital, about status. Do you know what the real inheritance is? Do you know what saved this house from your kind of hollow, empty greed? It was a woman's love for a man with dirt on his hands and the son he never got to raise. This house, Marcus, this entire lineage that you worship, is built on a lie she chose to tell so that a boy of good character could inherit the wealth of a man who had none. She picked up the photo, her hand trembling. This is your ancestor, Marcus. Not some duke, but a stable hand named Liam O'Connell. This is the true Blackwood line. What is your hatred and greed worth against a sacrifice like that? Nothing, less than nothing. Marcus froze, his face shifting from rage to stunned disbelief, then finally to pure, wounded arrogance. Lies! You're making up stories because you want to keep whatever is in that box. You've gone mad, Evelyn. Read it yourself, Evelyn challenged, tossing one of the loose, brittle journal pages onto the floor at his feet, a page describing Elara's forced wedding to Julian. Marcus squinted at the script, his brow furrowing as he absorbed the date and the intimate, devastating detail of the confession. For a moment, the facade of his self-assured hate cracked, revealing a flicker of something akin to fear or bewilderment. He looked at the vast, silent room, then back at Evelyn, clutching the box that held the key to their entire false identity. The sheer, overwhelming drama of the revelation silenced him. He had spent his life believing himself superior due to his lineage. Now, that lineage was a forgery founded on the deepest kind of romantic defiance. This is an insult, he finally whispered, his voice dangerously low, his face contorted by the realization that he might be wrong, that his entire basis for hate and entitlement was a myth. I will contest this. I will burn this house down before I let you turn our family history into a cheap romance novel. You can try, Evelyn said, her tears finally drying, replaced by a cold, clear resolve she hadn't known she possessed. But you cannot contest the truth. The true value of Blackwood Manor is no longer in its paintings or its silver. It's in the story of Elara and Liam O'Connell. It is priceless, Marcus, and you, with your measuring tapes and auctioneers, don't have the currency to touch it. Marcus, defeated by the intangible weight of the revelation, turned and walked out, his polished shoes scuffing the Persian rug again, the silence he left behind infinitely heavier than the silence of dust. The legal battles were inevitable, prolonged and ugly, driven by Marcus's desperate hate and disbelief. Evelyn, however, did not fight for the money. She fought for the house, armed with the evidence of the journal and a deep, new sense of purpose. She showed the journal to her lawyers, not as evidence of fraud, but as a narrative explaining the emotional foundation of the estate. Eventually, Marcus, realizing the impossibility of proving the illegitimacy of a long-dead man and disgusted by the lack of pure monetary focus, settled for a fraction of the silver and retreated, leaving Evelyn with the manor. Evelyn kept Blackwood Manor. She didn't renovate it into a modern space. Instead, she chose to honor the sacrifice of the woman she now knew as Elara. The house was not an asset to be liquidated, but a story to be preserved. She spent weeks cleaning the drawing room herself. She took the photograph of Elara and Liam, the soldier and the society lady, united by a fierce hidden love, and placed it not in the hidden box, but prominently on the Biedermeier cabinet. It was the first honest portrait in the house. She finally understood the strange, deep sadness that had always clung to the house, the emotional coldness that had defined her grandmother. It wasn't wickedness. It was the cost of a decades-long pretense, a profound, continuous act of will against unimaginable grief. Helena Blackwood, the cold matriarch, was a mask worn by Elara O'Connell, the passionate, heartbroken bride. One evening, Evelyn stood in the library, the scent of old paper and wood comforting her now instead of suffocating her. She was dusting a shelf when she paused and reached up to touch the portrait of her grandmother. "Helena, the one with the severe eyes. You won, Elara," Evelyn whispered, a single cleansing tear tracing a path down her cheek. "You saved the house and you saved Arthur, and you kept your promise." The heirloom, the simple oak box, had been estimated by an appraiser to be worth perhaps $50, the journal just brittle paper. Marcus scoffed that it was worth less than the scrap metal of the broken music box, but Evelyn knew its true value. It held the truth of love that defied class, the drama of a secret marriage, the cold, decades-long burn of hate for a cruel husband, and the silent, enduring tears of sacrifice. It was priceless. Evelyn had not inherited a property. She had inherited a complete, devastating, and gloriously human story. She was no longer Evelyn Blackwood, the data analyst, indifferent to her family's past. She was Evelyn, the caretaker of the Chronos Box, the protector of Elara and Liam's enduring love. The long, silent history of the manor was finally speaking, and for the first time Evelyn felt truly at home.